Hey, I'm Ross with Sunstoppers. I've been in the business for about 20 years now. Just wanted to talk to you today about what we're doing. This is at a customer's facility. This is a big corporate client. This is a conference room that they're trying to have some privacy on. So this is the film that we're applying. So Nick is over there cutting out each individual piece for each panel. This is a decorative film gradient. It's a dual gradient. It fades both directions. This is a mock-up that we did for the customer so that they could see the height. So every client is going to have different needs. So they liked this gradient to fade both directions, but we had to determine on site and do a mock-up for them so that they could see what it would look like for the height so that they could have the correct privacy. So the main thing is for distractions for the employees that are walking by, so that whenever who is in the conference room has the privacy and they're not distracted either. So right now we're starting on this end and we're gonna work this direction. We've got some marks on the glass that show different heights. Some people use different, they use different techniques. Laser levels work well. We've used that in the past, but for us in this facility, it's easier for us to just make a mark on the glass and then clean that. But I just kind of wanted to show you too how we've got this rolled up and what Nick is doing over here. So he's pulling it to the width of the panel, and then he's taking it and rolling it up. And this is a film handler. This is a 72-inch roll film handler. So if you don't have one of these, you definitely need to invest, because it definitely makes cutting the edges perfect, and then also we can splice the film in whatever direction, and it's definitely the most professional way of doing this, and it's also the most efficient way of doing it, and cost efficient too. We're going to get going on this, and we'll check back in with us later and we'll see how it goes. All right guys, I wanted to show you this. This is my setup. A lot of guys use what we have, the True Spray tanks. These True Spray tanks are awesome because they have their own built-in compressor, so they compress the water, and this is the sprayer that shoots out. But anyhow, this is kind of the old-fashioned way, but this is a portable air compressor. So what I'm doing right now is trying to air up the tank so that we have the right air pressure in there. So I'm going to turn this up to about 95 PSI. I've got 68 in there now, so we're going to get that up a little higher and then go ahead and start this guy. So that's going to be the water that we're using. So the True Spray tank is really cool because it's quiet and it doesn't have all that noise, and then it's also consistent, and so you don't ever have to compress it. You can even just open up the top, refill it however you need to, and turn the system on, and it gives you consistent pressure at all times. This guy over here, the only difference between the two is that uses the compressed air, and whenever it starts to lose the air, you got to recompress it. So it's a little loud, a little annoying, but it's also kind of the old school method, which I am pretty old school. So, okay, I wanted to show you the install method here. This has already been cleaned, so we use a scrubby to clean it, and then we squeegee this off. I'm going to squeegee this one more time. I just want to make sure that it's nice and clean and ready to go. So we've got marks on the glass. You can't see them, but they're in that vicinity, the area. So what that does is that helps us when we go to apply the film. We kind of have a target to get the film in that position, and then we'll light tack it, take the tape measure both sides. So you got to measure this side and that side. If you just measure the center, it can be off kilter. So we just want to make sure that it's nice and even, and then also consistent all the way down. So I'm going to squeegee this off one more time, and we will show you the method here. All right. All right, so you got to make sure you get everything super wet here. Make sure that the glass is not drying anywhere. Also, you got to make sure the top is wet too. You don't want too much water up here, even though we're not going all the way to the top. If you put too much water, there can be some debris, or you just have constant water running down. So you would want to treat this like any other window if you were going all the way up to the frame. All right, so here's the film rolled up. So we have, we're going to do the back roll method. It's kind of like a reverse roll, California roll. A lot of guys use this in auto. This is a pressure sensitive film. This is also very thick. The liner is very thick. So what I do is I'll unroll it a little bit first. And if you look at the roll, the liner side is inside. Okay, so the film side is on the exterior, the sticky side is on the inside, so this rolls up into the tube. So what I do is I'll wet that just a little bit to kind of give it a little bit of tackiness, and then I'll roll it back up. And then start the peeling process, which makes it easier if you have it rolled nice and tight. You don't have too much flapping. So the object is to separate the two. I know it's kind of hard to see because this is a almost clear film at the top. So when you start to separate it, you got to pinch it and put your thumb on the liner side and then run your finger down to start to separate. This is a very, very delicate film, so you got to be careful with how you do this. You know, try not to touch it. So I'm just running my finger in between the two, the liner and the film. This is not a quick process. This is something that you got to take your time on and get it right. But it will help you. Another method is to use use this as a pill board. So you would reverse it and have the liner facing you and you peel it off. Similar to auto, guys use that as a pill board on auto when they're trying to remove the film.
I'll do that after you do this. You can do me doing it that way. That'd be kind of cool.
Yep. So again, I'm using my mouth to kind of.
With that mouth,
Let's just cut this. I don't like this method. I don't want to teach people how to do this. This is sucky. So what I'm going to do is actually switch up here. This was not back rolling as easily as I wanted, so I didn't want to damage the film. So what I'm going to do is actually the method where it's just like a transfer method. So we'll use this as a pill board. I'll peel the liner completely off, spray the film, and then transfer it back over. One thing you want to do too, if you do have the glass to use, you want to kind of use this center part as your center. So this mullion right here, kind of use that as your center, because what you don't want happening is this to lay over both sides, because we've got it larger, okay? So if you see it's past the frame. So I don't want to have both sides lifting. So what this does is this helps you with being able to have a nice flat edge. You know, it's not flat in the middle, but it's nice and tight. So we're going to use this as a transfer method here. So wet the liner side. The liner side is facing us. Again, I'm going to re-squeegee this one more time because now that I've determined that the back roll method's not going to work, there can be dust and debris on the glass, so I want to squeegee this off one more time just to make sure. All right, again, re-wet. Okay, and wet the back side. So we're going to do this, separate the two, wet, hold. So you can touch out here because this is going to be cut off because we made this larger than the actual window width. So you don't want to touch anywhere in this area. You got to be careful with that. And then you want to keep it nice and flat and pull in one even direction. If you see I'm not pulling down or up, I'm pulling in one even direction. Consistently wetting it. Just again, this is a slow process. You got to make sure so it's starting to curl. I'm gonna use my water, spraying that. Got to make sure it's nice and flat on the glass. Okay. Another method too, you don't want it to drag too much on the film because it actually will pull the film off. So the more you have this lifted up off that, the better off you can pull this nice and even, and it's not going to cause friction along each other. So wet this all the way. All right, come back over here, make sure this is nice and wet. And so I'm going to basically fold this that direction. So this is the sticky side, and now it's got to transfer back. So again, being careful, making sure you're nice and even. Okay. So one thing you have to be really careful of with this particular product is adhesive marring. So adhesive marring happens very easily if the glass is dry or if you have the film dry, either one, and you're trying to slide it. And if you slide it on the glass and the adhesive is stuck in that area, when you slide it, it actually disrupts the adhesive. So you got to make sure that you're nice and you have solution all the way around. So here's what I'm going to do now is make sure that I've hit my mark. Okay, so I'll measure the center first. Okay, I need to kind of go up a little bit. All right, so one thing that we want to do is, I'm going to ask this question to my guy over here because he did all the marks. I want to ask him, did he measure from the rubber or did he measure from the frame so that we're all consistent? Measure from the rubber. Okay, cool. All right, so again, too, making sure that you have good tape measures. Don't go get the cheap Harbor Freight ones because those are inconsistent. So one tape, Stanley to a Harbor Freight may be off a little bit. You may be off 1/4 of an inch, and that matters in this, you know, making sure that your top line is consistent all the way, because 1/4 inch you can actually see. So again, making sure that everybody's on the same page is very huge. So again, we're going to remeasure, and I'm going to re-wet this so that I don't mar the adhesive. Lifting it up. Just wetting the top because all of this has it's nice and wet in there, but the top is where you get the worst adhesive marring. Okay, cool. All right. Again, laser levels work great for this, but in this situation we wanted to just use the tape measure. So I'm off there, I gotta come up. Okay, perfect. So now what I'm going to do is tack it in place soft, do what we call a soft tack. Start in the center, pull this direction, go down. So this is a T method. So that just made a T. So I started in this center, pulled over, ran down the center, ran that direction, and now I'm just going to soft tack everything. So one thing before you get super far, and if it did move on you and you need to reposition it, you would not want to do that at this point. You would have to re-lift it and wet it. But I just want to double check, make sure that it didn't move when I did that soft tack. Yep, perfect, 13. Perfect. You got to really make sure that you're always measuring from the same position every time. The reason why we're measuring from the top and not the floor is because the floor has a lot of different variation and height. So when they build buildings like this, there's a tolerance on how much, variance they can have in the floor. So we've seen even an inch in some places. So the top, what we call the header, is always in the same position, and that's the most true measurement. So if you're measuring every single piece of glass from the same position, your measurements are going to run true throughout the whole entire project. So just a couple little tricks. Again, you know, a laser measure does help. You know, you can set it up on the outside. A lot of times though, you get some reflection back, and it's kind of difficult to really see what you're doing. That's why we like to mark, and it's just quick and easy to pull the tape out and measure it, make sure you're good. So I'm going to finish the soft tack here, making sure it's not going to move. Okay, it's in position now. I'm going to re-wet it, and I'm going to come back and go with a medium pass. This is not my final squeegee. I'm just going nice and light over the film. You got to be very careful with this particular material not to go super hard. If you can hear it, it's actually got some texture to it, and that texture can be rubbed off if you hit it at a, you know, if the corner of your squeegee hits it and you hit it too hard, it can actually rub the clear coat off. So you just have to be really careful there. So if you notice, I'm only squeegeeing up to where the film is naturally resting. So it's naturally resting here. If I push down, it's going to want to lift back up. So if I squeegee all the way to the edge, the film is going to lay down, but then it's going to relift, and now you have a dry spot behind it. So you just want to squeegee to about an inch or so from the edge, inch to 2 inches, about where it's naturally resting, so that you're leaving water back behind there. So once you make your final cut, now you've got water in there, and then you can do a hard pass and do a final squeegee. All right, so now we're ready to make the cut. All right, so this is the Alpha knife. One thing I always like to do, and this is not a fresh blade, this is a used blade. I didn't put a new one in there, but I want to go ahead and take a couple of clicks off. So this is basically a razor disposal. So we're going to click and get a nice fresh edge so that I have a nice sharp edge on my knife. Okay, so I'm using my hand. Some guys use cards. In certain situations I'll use a card, but I'm basically using my hand as a card. I'm holding it flat and holding the film. And so I'm going to start up top, come in easy. Once you've made engagement with the knife, once it cuts in, you're going to run that all the way down, keeping it nice and even all the way down. Making sure that you got the cut all the way through. So one thing, you know, with this film, some films are different. You can come in and kind of tuck it and then make the cut. This film is a little bit more unforgiving. So you got to make sure that you have water back there too. So I don't know if I have enough water back here. So what I'm going to do is spritz a little water in here. You don't want to do too much, because if you do too much, it can cause debris to come out of the edge and cause the film to have debris in it throughout the whole piece. So what I don't want to do is try to tuck all the way in starting here. I want to start at the top. Okay, so I'm coming in and I'm holding my hand there. So it's not relifting. I'm going to come in and start my cut. And I'm running my hand in front of that, down below the knife. My left hand, I'm cutting with my right hand. I'm using my left hand to kind of hold the film down as I cut. And there we go. So the next is going to be a final squeegee. We're going to come back. And again, when I say a hard pass, a hard press, we don't want to be pushing it so hard to where it's going to be, you know, damaging the film or causing the film to move and mar. So again, be careful with that. Making sure your squeegee is going above. And so if you notice there's water up here, okay? So that water you want to go ahead and dry off, because what happens is once you've squeegeed this and you get down to the bottom, some of that water can drain into the top of the film. You don't want that to happen. Same thing similar to a top frame, like if we were to take this edge all the way up to the top, we would want to do the same method. So I'm just going to go ahead and dry that all the way so we're not dealing with the water bleeding into the film. So we don't want the water to bleed into the film because now it's down, it's tacked. I don't want it lifting up anymore. I don't want any water below it.
Spray it first.
Okay. Again, going nice and even, doing a 50-50 overlap. If you notice, this is where my last pass was. I'm coming in with this about centered and going over that so that we're doing a 50-50 overlap. I'm going all the way to the edge. Okay, I'm pushing hard and then I'm letting up. Okay, doing it even all the way down, starting from the center, pushing all the way over. Okay, there's two different ways of doing it, basically like how I did, but since it's already tacked, you're good, but you can also run that center T all the way down. Sometimes I don't like doing that because that dries up the center, because I want to start, not only do I want to do a 50-50 overlap over what I squeegeed, but I want to come past center point. So if I start back here, that's too far, but if I start here, I know that I'm past center. Okay, so I'm making sure that all the water is extracted out. And so what I mean by that is this area right here has not been squeegeed, but this is past center. But I want to come over here and push so that I'm making sure that there's no water left behind. It's a very, very delicate process. Okay, I want to make sure that I dry off the top again. Okay, and this is what we call the bump method. Some guys use a paper towel. This is just like a terry cloth. It's actually an old baby diaper. So I use this as my edge. Wrap it, bump into the edge. So you're pushing in and letting off, pushing in, letting off, all the way down. So what this is doing is this is drying out the edge, but it's also making sure that you have all of the water extracted out from underneath, because this can only go so far, right? And it leaves about 1/4 of an inch gap. So you want to come back with this guy and then dry the edge. So that's step one, and that's only one panel. We've got a good bit left to go in here, but we also have lots of other areas to go to today. So I'm going to finish that same exact process through the rest of this room, and then we'll go and show you what the rest of that looks like afterwards. All right, guys, this is Ross back here again. I wanted to take you inside and show you the finished results here. All right, so we got the film on. So this is the privacy that they were looking to achieve. So if you see, you can't even tell where the film starts and stops because it's got a clear ending up top and on the bottom. Now there are options to where you can cover the full glass, but the customer just wanted to do a band. So this is a 60-inch band. So this gives them the privacy that they need from the interior side of things where the clients are sitting in here and they need the privacy, and then also on the outside when people are walking by, they're not distracted.